Thank you for the invitation to come speak today. Can you imagine what it's like to live almost 3 decades of your life and not know that you're partially blind, that you can't see in 3 dimensions? I'm sure it's pretty hard for most of you to imagine this, so I'm going to take you on a journey to show you what it was like for me to live for so long and not know that I was partially blind, and what I did to rewire my brain so that I could see in more depth. And then we're going to discuss the impact and how all of us suffer when doctors don't inform patients about the impact of their visual disabilities. I was born in the former Soviet Union, and I was born cross-eyed. The technical term for it is strabismus. So as you can see here, my eyes weren't straight. That's another picture where my eyes were going, inwards. Because I looked so funny, and abnormal, I was actually sent to a preschool for the developmentally disabled. As you can probably tell, I'm not developmentally disabled. When I came to the United States at the age of 3, I had my first surgery to straighten my eyes, and it actually left me with a lazy eye. So you can see here my left eye was moving out to the side. And I used to get weird looks from people because people didn't know which eye to look at. So at the age of 17, I was thrilled when my doctor allowed me to get my second surgery to straighten my eyes. And as you can see in this photo, my eyes look pretty much straight, but they're still a little bit asymmetric. I was thrilled because people stopped giving me weird looks, and I thought, hey, if I look like everybody else, I probably see like everybody else. Well, I was terribly wrong. There's this phrase, ignorance is bliss, but when it comes to your health, medical ignorance is not bliss. At the age of 29, I happened to read an article by Dr. Oliver Sacks, the famous British neurologist. The article is called Stereo Sue, and it was in the New Yorker magazine. And he explained that people like me, who had a lazy eye, amblyopia, or strabismus, cross-eyed, or both, cannot see in 3D. And the reason is because our eyes see things in different places. So one eye sees an object here, and their other eye sees it here. Well, these are 2 disparate images. So the brain can't combine these 2 images to create a 3D picture. And the option is either for the person to see double all the time, which would drive them insane, or the brain just shuts off the vision from one eye, either eye. It's usually the non-dominant eye. And we see it with one eye at a time, so we're monocular using one eye rather than binocular using both eyes. And he went on to explain how a professor of neurobiology in the United States, Susan Berry, changed all this for herself. Like me, she was cross-eyed since she was a child, had various surgeries, and she did what's called vision therapy and developed 3D vision in her late 40s. I found out that vision therapy is kind of like physical therapy, but for the eyes and for the brain. I was in shock because I had no idea what this depth perception thing was. 3D, 2D, no clue. And I also didn't know what vision therapy was. So I took the magazine to my optometrist, and I said, "Doctor, am I like this woman? Do I not see in 3D? Or she used to not see in 3D, now she can see in 3D. And I saw this look of semi-horror on his face because he was about to deliver some really bad news to me. And he was gathering his words, and he said, "Are you serious that no one has ever told you that because your eyes aren't straight, you're partially blind and you can't see in 3D? And I said, "No, doctor, that's why I'm here, because I don't understand what this article is about." So he did some tests on me, and he confirmed that, in fact, I was stereo blind, stereo meaning seeing with both eyes. I couldn't see with both eyes at the same time, even though I had good vision with both eyes. I left in tears from his office. I was absolutely devastated. How could I have lived this long and not known that I was partially blind? But then, as I processed the information, a lot of things started to make sense to me. I had no idea why, during my entire life, I was so clumsy. The thing is that I just couldn't see the distance between where I was and where other people were and where other objects were. So I was terrible at partner dancing. Any sport requiring throwing, kicking, or catching a ball, hitting a ball, forget it. Me with a tennis racket, I'm hitting the air because I couldn't figure out where the ball was. I would sometimes, when I was reading, I would see words move on the page. Driving, oh my gosh, to this day, when I need to merge onto the highway, my heart beats really fast because I'm afraid to get hit. I can't figure out how far away those other cars are. So you might wonder, well, if you had so many problems, why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you tell your parents? Why didn't you tell your doctor? The thing is, I didn't realize I had a problem. I have what's called a hidden disability. If you have a physical disability, then you know it because it's physically obvious you have a disability. But if it's something hidden, you might not know you have it until you're tested. So imagine if you were colorblind, but you didn't know it. And for you, seeing something in red, like this lens is in red and this is in green, until somebody puts two objects in front of you, one in red and the other one in green, and asks you which one is red, which one is green, and you realize actually they look like the same to me, they're gray or whatever color, you don't know that you're colorblind and you can't distinguish red from green. So to find out that we have a hidden disability, we have to be tested. No one tested me. No one told me. I didn't know. I was living in ignorance. And I found out that about 5% of the population has what I have, has either a lazy eye or strabismus. And as a result, we have binocular vision problems. There are other people with other types of binocular vision problems who also have trouble coordinating their eyes and maybe also seeing in depth. So I'd like you to turn on the lights, please, and we're going to do an exercise. I'd like all of you to take out one of your hands and put it in front of the chair that's in front of you. If you're in the front row, just put it, you put your hand facing the floor. And I want you to see what image you see now. Then with the other hand, I want you to cover one of your eyes. How many of you see a different image? Do you see less depth now that your eyes are covered? One of your eyes is covered. Oh yeah, sorry, you have both hands. You can raise one of your hands now. So some of you do see less depth. Now, for the rest of you, don't worry, I'm not giving you the diagnosis that you're partially blind, you haven't known it yet. It could be that your brain is filling in the information that it saw when you had both eyes open. And now that you've closed one eye, you're still seeing the same image. But if you kept that one eye closed for a couple of hours, maybe 10 minutes, you're going to start seeing in 2D. Those of you who had your hands up, I wanted to know what it was like to see through your eyes. I wanted to see in depth. Please turn off the lights. So I decided to do vision therapy. And the point of vision therapy was to train my eyes to work together and to train my brain to process the vision from both eyes. Surgery just physically moves the eyes to be straighter, but doesn't affect necessarily how the brain is going to see those images from both eyes. So I had a lot of different exercises that I had to do, a lot of homework, one of which was to wear prism glasses on top of my regular spectacles. So I walked around home looking like this. I look like a total clown, somebody who's been wearing her Halloween costume for too long. I assure you I never wore these on the street because I had enough of people giving me weird looks as a child and I didn't want to continue. So I used those prism glasses. I did another exercise called the Brock string, where I would, all right, this thing is really long. So I would look at the first bead, which in this case is red, and if I could see the two other beads, the yellow and the green, in double, I knew I was using both eyes. Another exercise I did was using RedGreen glasses, such as these. These are pretty similar to what you would see if you went to a cinema to watch a 3D movie. So one eye sees through the red lens and the other eye sees through a green lens. And if I could see the letters and the numbers in the red columns at the same time, then I knew I was using both eyes at the same time. The problem was that sometimes I would get so tired that I would see something flashing in red, then in green, then in red, then in green. And I would just have to close my eyes because I was so tired. I was working through the scar tissue from 2 surgeries, and I was trying to wake up the binocular vision cells in my brain that had been dormant for almost, for over 3 decades. Rewiring your brain isn't easy. One of the side effects was that I would sometimes see in double. So this is what I look like in single, and this is what I look like in double. Imagine trying to have a conversation with somebody when sometimes you see one mouth, sometimes two eyes, sometimes three, sometimes four, sometimes one nose, sometimes two noses. It's extremely difficult to see in double, especially when driving. But when I was having conversations with people, I would have to look away, start fidgeting like a little child. I'd have to break up my gaze somehow so that I would stop seeing them in double. Some people who have binocular vision problems actually have really bad problems with double vision. And it can cause migraines and various problems because it's very hard to concentrate if this is how you see the world. But life wasn't just about the hardships of vision therapy. I actually learned to see the world anew in my 30s. Most people don't have that opportunity to have a visual renaissance like I did. I could see details more. I would stare at an orange peel because I could see the indentations in the skin. The problem is that when I told people about the fact that I stared at oranges, some people thought I was on psychedelic drugs like LSD because like who else is going to stare at an orange in their 30s? But I was totally in love with looking at orange peels and grapefruits and lemons. I would walk by myself without listening to any music or any podcasts, just so that I could see tree branches coming towards me as I walked towards them. Before, when I walked towards a tree or towards a bush or flowers, they were just there, stationary. But now, I had what was called motion parallax. I could see depth in motion. It was like the trees and the flowers, they all wanted me to come to them. They were reaching out towards me. It was an incredible feeling. I could see the rain outside my window when it was raining. Before, the way I knew it was raining is if I heard the rain, if I saw objects outside that were wet, or if I saw raindrops on my window, but I couldn't actually see falling rain because it was too small and it was clear. But via vision therapy, my visual acuity improved so much that I could actually see falling rain. It was an incredible experience to see anew. And I still haven't developed 3D vision, but I do see in better depth and better detail than before. Eventually, the side effects of the double vision and the fatigue and the headaches went away. And I decided to write about this in my book, One-Eyed Princess, to share with others what it's like as an adult to rewire your brain to see in depth. And as I was writing this book, I communicated with other people who were like me, who also had binocular vision issues, some of whom had done vision therapy. And it turns out that my story wasn't unique. Other people also never found out from their doctors that they had a visual disability and how that disability impacted their lives. And then I realized that the problem was much bigger than I thought. Imagine what it would have been like if those reading problems I had when I was a kid, when I saw words moving on the page, were actually much more constant. Imagine if I'd been seeing in double, but I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to be seeing in double. I might never have been able to finish my schooling. I now speak 8 languages. I wouldn't have been able to read grammar books and learn languages if I was reading in double. I wouldn't be able to be here on this stage right now if my symptoms had been much worse and if I hadn't been able to figure out what to do with them. The problem is that there are children in school who have binocular vision issues and other vision problems, and they don't know it. The parents and the teachers get frustrated because the kid can't read, but the teachers can't figure that out, and the kid is fidgeting in class, talking to others, misbehaving, making noise, playing games, because the kid can't read what's on the board, read what's in the book, and the kid is bored. And nobody suspects that the child has a reading problem or any sort of vision problem. And the reason is that school vision tests, at least in the United States, I don't know how it is in Canada, but not all states in the United States actually test for binocular vision problems. They give students something like this, a simple eye chart. You've probably all seen this kind of eye chart. Well, you can see in double. You can see with letters moving on all around. You can still pass the eye exam. But put those letters together to form a word, and put some spaces between the words to form sentences. And then sentences become paragraphs, and then paragraphs become text on a page. Those kids who can pass this exam but don't know they have trouble reading, they can't read. And they're frustrated because no one told them they had a vision problem. So what happens to those kids? Some of them get misdiagnosed by psychiatrists or pediatricians as having attention deficit disorder or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And what happens to them? They're prescribed very dangerous psychotropic medications such as Ritalin and Adderall. Those medications have as potential side effects insomnia and suicidal thoughts. So you have children who need corrective lenses like mine, or maybe vision therapy, but instead they can't sleep and they might be thinking of killing themselves. But it gets even worse than that. Those children who can't pay attention in school, who can't do sports because they can't see where any of the balls are, some of them get involved in criminal activity because they have nothing else to do. In the US, there have been studies showing that there's a high percentage of children in juvenile correctional facilities who have previously undiagnosed vision problems and they have trouble reading. What happens to those kids? If they never learn how to read and if they never learn how not to see in double, they're going to be probably in and out of jail for the rest of their lives, possibly on public assistance programs, and possibly also taking dangerous medications that they may not need. And who pays for that? We all do with our taxes. It's much cheaper to get to get glasses and vision therapy than it is to pay for years of incarceration or years of unneeded drugs. So the situation is bad. And once I realized how bad the impact was, I wanted to know, why is it so bad? And I found out that actually this can be traced to the way doctors are taught. Doctors don't learn about this when they're studying in medical school. So doctors, unless you want to get sued for malpractice, you need to learn about vision therapy and how binocular vision problems affect students. Because otherwise, you might get sued for malpractice if you give them medications that they don't need or if you don't tell them they're partially blind. Medical schools need to teach empathy to students and have them patch one eye and walk down the stairs, be in the passenger seat while someone else is driving so they can understand what it's like to live in the shoes of people who can only see with one eye. The way we're going to change the situation that we have right now is through empathy, education, and testing. Because otherwise, this cycle of ignorance is going to keep going. Thank you.